Welcome to the Outliers Podcast, celebrating the people, the skills, and the tools that create stories worth reading. A presentation of Outliers Writing University, where tomorrow's authors learn the craft.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, D.P. Lyle, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It is great to be here. And I have to say that we've got just a fabulous interview for you. This gentleman has done it all. He is a novelist. He's written for television. He's produced. He's been a journalist. He's award-winning. He's best-selling. George Pelecanos, welcome to Get to Know.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. It's been a while. So, as our viewers know, I like to dig a little bit into our author interviews, and I would really like to know how you feel, if at all, your childhood contributed to you becoming a writer. Did you have imaginary friends? Were you an outgoing kid? Were you introverted? Did you read a lot, etc.? Tell us about it.
I think I had a pretty normal childhood and a happy one in a loving house and so on. And you often hear about guys like Scorsese always talks about how he was sickly and he's looking out the window at the kids playing in the street. And well, I was one of the kids playing in the street. Like I didn't have any of those roadblocks, but what I did have was a big imagination. And when I was 11, I started working for my dad. He had a diner downtown, and my job was delivering food on foot to the office buildings down around DuPont Circle. And to pass the time, I would make up in a weekly installment. I would make up a movie, as I was walking around, and I would compose the story in my head. And probably, if you saw me, you'd think I was a weird kid because I would also do the music.
Yeah,
and I was probably humming or singing, and
yeah,
and in my mind, I was making movies, but really what I was doing was I was writing a book because I was patiently telling the story in chapters all week long. So it was all about imagination for me, and I always had that. Always.
cool.
That is so cool. Did you read a lot as a kid?
Not really.
Not really. You just
Well,
had
my mom would take me to the library every week and I'd get books out and stuff like that. But when I hit my adolescence, I just stopped reading because I was doing a lot of other things, and in my teen years and so on.
chasing girls and etc.
Yeah, I was just doing what teenage guys did in the 70s. I had a Camaro.
Yeah.
I was playing pickup basketball, I was drinking beer, smoking weed, whatever. Books weren't on the list, But I was going to a lot of movies. I was a movie freak.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my sense of story. And it wasn't until my senior year at the University of Maryland that I took a class in crime fiction and I started reading again. And this teacher, Charles Mish, turned me on to books again, and that's when I sort of decided that I wanted to do this.
So that's when you decided you wanted to be, or what was the first step when you said, okay, I want to do this? We all have that moment. And then you think, well, okay, how do I do this? What was your first step after that when you said, okay, I'm going to write?
Okay, so like I was around 21 then, I guess, 22, I was a senior. And I knew I was way behind in terms of reading, and I'd never taken a writing class. So I methodically said, I'm going to read my ass off for the next 10 years. And that's what I did. I started reading books, a couple books a week. While I was working the various jobs I was taking at the time. And after 10 years of that, when I was around 30 or 31, I said, I think I got it figured out. I'm going to write a book.
Who did you read back then, and who do you think had the greatest influence on your storytelling on the page?
Well, the class that I took in crime fiction had the masters. I read Chandler and Hammett and those people, Ross McDonald, but also who was more influential to me were people like James Crumley and Elmore Leonard. who were doing something new with crime fiction.
Yeah.
And Crumley was a big one because he brought the post-Vietnam generation into the crime. He dragged it into crime fiction, and then I thought that what I would do, or what I wanted to do, was do kind of a punk rock thing with crime fiction, which is my generation.
Mhm.
And it was, punk in DC was very prevalent, and it was inspirational to me in the sense that I was watching these people who were making good music, but they had never been trained in music. They just decided that I have something to contribute, and I'm going to pick up a guitar or sticks, and I'm going to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt about writing. I knew, like I said, I'd never gone to graduate school, never been in a writing class. I knew it was going to be raw, but I thought I had something to contribute, and that's where it all came from.
Well, it's interesting. I guess probably, if I had to guess, 100% of crime writers and probably 80% of writers and other things, when we ask them who their influences were, Elmore Leonard's name always comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a master class in how to tell a story.
He changed, he changed everything. I mean, I remember when I read my favorite crime novel of his is a book called Swag. It
Yep.
was originally called Ryan's Rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so honest about people in Detroit. There was no sense that he was covering up anything. It was like you were in a room listening to these people talk.
Yes.
And the hero, the protagonists of the book were criminals. They were guys who decided to pull off armed robberies. I just thought it was revolutionary. And then later on in my career, I got to not just meet him, but we did a couple book tours together, and it was just super honor to be around him.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
I
That
met
had
him
to
at the
be-
Maui Writers Conference. He was very, very gracious with his time and his
Yep.
knowledge. He's just a great, very, very laid back. I really liked him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you also got into television and all this stuff, and I'm going to tell you, three of my favorite all-time series are The Wire, Treme, and The Deuce. My God, not for the faint of heart. To me, that's some of the best storytelling that I've ever seen.
Thank you.
How did you get into that world? Because those are all very edgy and very dark, and yet was that the Elmore Leonard influence again, or what?
Well, I had at that point, when David Simon tapped me to write for The Wire, I had written some stuff for the screen. I had done some uncredited rewrite work for movies that got made, stuff. So I had a little experience under my belt. But he read one of my books, and it happened to be a deep urban book of mine called The Sweet Forever. And he called me up and he said, he kind of underplayed it. He said, I just sold a show to HBO. It's about drug dealers and police. Would you like to write an episode? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I got in there, and the first season, I wrote an episode that was kind of notorious for the death of one of its characters. But I didn't get everything that I wanted on screen. I got about 35% of what I wrote made it to the screen. And David said, that's pretty good for your first screenplay. But it put a chip on my shoulder in a way. And I to myself, I said, I want to get to where 90% of what I write makes it to the screen. So the way to do that is to learn how to be a producer, because you're there all the time. You're working with the actors, the crew. You kind of know more about writing for production. And so I set myself to do that. And by the third season, I was a producer. And then, from there, we went on. We did Treme in New Orleans, and then David and I were the showrunners on The Deuce, and We Own the City, which was a few years ago.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But yeah, I mean, it just the material that I get involved with suits me. It's stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah,
and you have to. I feel like don't just take jobs in the business. Create jobs to write about the things you want to write about.
Yeah.
And then it becomes it becomes better when it hits the screen.
The
So
people
on
out
that,
there that have not seen The Deuce, I highly recommend it. It's the story of The Deuce, of course, is 42nd Street in New York, but it's basically the story of the development of the porn industry, and it is down and dirty. But what incredible characters! The good, the bad, and the ugly. But what incredible characters!
We met a guy, the James Franco character is based on this guy. And when we met him, he was dying of cancer. And we sat in a room with him for a couple hours and he started telling us these stories. And David and I walked out of there and we just looked at each other and said, we got to do this. There were so many good stories.
Yep.
And, we sold it as to HBO, we sold it as, yeah, it's the birth of pornography,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of other things, as you know. It was about
Yes.
what happened, the commodification of women, what happens to women in the workplace. And we had a whole thread about the gay movement in New York from the early days through AIDS. And we did a lot, It's sort of an epic story of New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Really
it's
well.
fantastic. So I want to know if you had one piece of advice, coming from the perspective of a writer who's done a lot and, various things, one piece of advice, what would you tell new writers? What would you recommend?
Read a lot. That's how you learn to write. Work every day and treat it like a job. So don't wait for inspiration. Or, I'm going to take a week off. I don't really like what I'm doing. I'm going to put it in a drawer. No, you got to power through it. You got to go to work every day at the same time, like any job that you have. And you're going to have bad days, just like you do, working in any career. But you just keep working, and there's time to rewrite. You're always going to rewrite anyway. Don't try to have that perfect day.
Right.
And then the other thing for me, anyway, the way it worked, my agent early on, I've been with my same agent my whole career. He told me in the beginning, I was trying to figure out the business too. And he said, let me take care of that. You just put your head down and work. And I don't worry about anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, to this day, I couldn't tell you. People will say to me, like, how many books did you sell? Like, I have no idea, man.
Right.
I don't look at the numbers or anything like that. It's not something I can really control anyway.
Right.
Why do I need that added stress?
Yeah.
Love it.
Do you have a set schedule? Do you have a certain time of the day that you write, or does it move around?
Yeah, I do. I come in at 9, like a job, and I work until a late lunch. And then I do something else in the afternoon when I was more active. I would ride my bike or kayak or something like that, something physical, and then come back in the evening and rewrite what you did in the morning. So I work 2 shifts, and then you're ready to go the next day. You're ready to go forward, not just linger on what you wrote that morning. And the other thing is I work 7 days a week when I'm writing a book.
Yeah. Well, you've created some amazing characters. I've read, I think, just about all of your books over the years and really love them. Derek Strange, tell us about him, where he came from, and give us a little flavor of who he is.
Derek Strange is a guy, a DC guy who I've known all my life, basically, older than me, but the kind of guys that would take me under their wing when I was a young guy, whether it was a coach on a basketball team or just a guy at work that kind of took care of you. And he's a local guy. And is actually he's the favorite of all my characters. And I think I really know him well. And the new book, The Blue Flame, catches up with him in his 70s. And, what I tried to do was from the very, very beginning, the idea was to describe a man's life from beginning to end. And I've come close to doing that. When you first meet Derek Strange in Hard Revolution, he's 12 years old. And there have been several contemporary novels with him. And then going back when he was his first case in the 70s, and now he's in his 70s in The Blue Flame, and he's still working.
Yeah.
Just like me.
with limitations. And I like the way that you put all that in the story about you can actually see this is an old man trying to do a young man's job.
He's lost some steps,
Yep.
and without saying it, you see the things that he does, and he makes some mistakes in this book.
Yeah.
And
I love the
with
cover.
faithful results,
Yep.
So I tried to keep that real.
Well, I think you did. He's a great character. I've also loved him. He's just one of those characters that gets into you, and you just say, "Wow, man, what's he going to do next? What's he going to do next?" And I love to see the end of the road, so to speak. Even though, hopefully, you never know.
Well, even he in Hard Revolution, he's got a little girlfriend, Carmen, and we first meet him they're on the corner at the York Theater at Georgia and Otis, and he catches up with her at the end of the Blue Flame, and they kind of reconnect,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both in their twilight years, but it's kind of beautiful, man.
Yep.
I love that. So what's your process? Are you a pantser? Do you outline?
No outline.
No
Yeah.
outline. You just sit down every day?
Well, I front end a lot of research. So, it might be 2 or 3 months of me just doing street research and library research and oral history kind of stuff. And then I got a folder of material to work with and a situation. So I'm not flying blind completely, but I don't outline. I just like to come in every day and write and figure out the story as I go along.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the night before or even months before you're kind of working things out? Do you think you have kind of an idea, a more in-depth idea in your mind, or you don't think about it until you sit down that day?
Now you're really the whole time you're writing a book, even when you're not writing, you're sort of in a tunnel, creative tunnel. And you could find me walking around my house with bouncing a rubber ball on the hardwood floor. That's me writing,
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think Stephen King's wife said that when she'd go to his place where he wrote, and he'd be sitting there with his feet propped up, staring out the window, and she didn't bother him because he was writing. And that gestation time is critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all work.
Yeah, it's all work. It all is.
Terry Brooks used to say he'd lay in his hammock and he just called it dream time. And he'd be laying there again, just writing. So what are you working on now? I mean, can't wait for Blue Flame to come out, but I'm sure you aren't letting any grass grow under your feet. So what are you working on?
Well, I have another book that's completed and sold. It's coming out next year. It's called Tell Chuck Berry the News. And kind of a sprawling. You meet these kids in the early 70s coming home from a Led Zeppelin concert, these teenagers, and the book follows them all the way to pretty much the end of their lives. It's kind of a big book. That's coming out next August, and I'm working on some TV stuff. I'm pitching some things, and I'm involved in a couple things I can't really talk about, but I'm always kind of working,
Well, we want you back with a new book next
Absolutely.
July. We'll do the same thing. We'll dance again. Where can people find you now, and they want to order the Blue Flame and get to know more about you and all of your other books?
I don't know. My website's kind of stagnant. I haven't done anything with that for a long time. You can get the book wherever books are sold, and people can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. I usually answer. If somebody if somebody wants to tell me something, I usually answer. I try to be polite.
That's great. I mean, a lot of authors don't do that, so that's really nice. So,
well, I read it last month and I love it, so I recommend it highly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to have you back. You're a fantastic interview. And please let us know when the next one's coming out. So the Blue Flame will be out August 4th, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, but you can pre-order it now. Highly recommend. And George, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Good to see you all again.
Good to see you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, as everybody knows, this wraps up this episode of Get to Know here on the Outliers YouTube channel and podcast series. And as you know, we will be back with other interviews and other fun stuff. So until then, keep reading, keep writing, keep having fun, and of course, try not to get caught.
The Outliers Podcast is a copyrighted presentation of Outliers Writing University. All rights reserved. Learn more at outlierswritinguniversity.com.